including immodest, inauthentic, self-serving, and even untrustworthy ones. Instead, the emphasis is on topics such as authentic leadership or servant leadership that typify how few leaders actually lead. Critics maintain that this kind of writing helps explain why leaders have done such a poor job of engaging employees. While recognizing the frustration of those observing little or no progress in engaging employees around the world, I believe this thinking underestimates the judgment that most leaders bring to the task of shaping and reshaping a culture. None of us are perfect, but most of us strive toward that end of the perfect to flawed spectrum. Further, we're not so naive as to try to apply all of the suggestions made in books such as this one. I assume you'll select what you think will be effective in the setting where you work and lead, and that in applying it, you will exhibit the kind of behaviors described here. If, on the other hand, your efforts are habitually immodest, inauthentic, or self-serving, you won't get very far, especially in dealing with an organization's culture. Throughout the book, I have tried to identify organizations and leaders where possible. There is a risk in this. One or more of these will implode over the immediate term future, triggering remarks about everything from the usefulness of the book to my judgment in selecting examples. After all, one of the most read anecdotal studies of management penned by Jim Collins was composed of just 11 organizations that met his severe criteria for firms going from good to great. Even so, one of them, Circuit City, went bankrupt and was sold for parts just 7 years after the publication of his book. Did it negate everything Collins had found? Did it make it less useful? No, but it generated knowing comments from the usual critics of this kind of research. There are a limited number of examples of non-U.S. organizations and leaders in the book. The challenge of including international examples when discussing the topic of culture has been noted by so-called culturalists, those who study differences in organizational cultures around the world. They have concluded that the underlying assumptions under which employees work and leaders lead are quite different from one part of the world to another. While this may be changing as a result of social networking and the extensive use of common technologies by new generations of potential leaders, it still holds true to a degree. As a result, the very foundations on which cultures are based may differ. However, there is a core of values and behaviors common to most cultures that enable organization members to manage across borders. I have addressed it elsewhere and have chosen not to take the time and space to do it again here. Nevertheless, Chapters 3, How Culture Drives Performance, Follow the Money, and 8, Lead for a Competitive Advantage Through Culture, have relevance for leaders around the world, with or without international anecdotes and examples. This book focuses on the decisions and behaviors of leaders, nearly all of them CEOs. This runs the risk of generating criticism about too much emphasis on the cult of the CEO, giving leaders too much credit for the successes or failures of their organizations. The intent, however, is to recognize leaders at all levels in the organization who are so critical to shaping and reshaping an organization's culture. The title of this book might imply to some that culture is an element of strategy, or that culture should be aligned with specific strategies. In an age in which long-term strategic planning is a thing of the past, and agile organizations are needed to cope with frequent change, effective cultures have to be able to support several successive strategies. That's why I ask you at the outset of the book to think of an organization's culture as a platform from which all kinds of change can be executed. Organizations where this appears to be especially true are those in which large numbers of frontline employees are in direct contact with customers. As I completed the manuscript for the book, organizations around the world were confronted with the COVID-19 pandemic. It changed the face of our daily lives and the way we work. It also provided a petri dish for a flood of research about why some firms negotiated the treacherous path through the pandemic better than others, and came out on the other side in stronger competitive positions. I will predict the results. When adjusted for industry-related effects of the pandemic on performance, illustrated by the degree to which users turned to the internet and services like Zoom for teaching and meeting, they will show that those organizations that put their employees first gained a long-term market